The moment I opened the secret envelope my late wife had hidden for years, my son turned as white as the paper in my hands. He didn't ask what it said. He didn't have to. The look on his face told me he already knew what was inside. That was the exact moment I realized the biggest secret in our family hadn't died with my wife. It had been waiting for me all along. If emotional family stories with unforgettable twists and meaningful life lessons speak to your heart, I'd truly appreciate you subscribing to Behind Dad. Before we continue, I want you to know that the pictures you see throughout this video are creative visual dramatizations inspired by this story. They are not real photographs from my family's life. My name is James. My wife, Margaret, and I were married for 41 years. We built a quiet life together, raised 2 children, and believed honesty would always hold our family together. When cancer took Margaret from us, I thought the hardest chapter of my life had already ended. I couldn't have been more wrong. During her final week, she quietly held my hand and whispered, "Don't open the envelope in my desk until you know it's time." I promised her I would wait, even though I had no idea what she meant. For 3 years, that envelope remained untouched inside the bottom drawer of her old writing desk. I dusted it every Sunday, but never broke my promise. My son, Daniel, often asked why I kept that desk locked. I always smiled and changed the subject. Looking back now, I realize he wasn't asking out of curiosity. He was checking to see whether I had opened it. Everything changed on the morning Daniel unexpectedly arrived carrying coffee and breakfast. He acted unusually cheerful, offering to help clean the house and organize Margaret's belongings. As we reached her desk, he quietly suggested it was finally time to throw away old memories and move on. Something about the way he said those words made my heart uneasy. After he stepped outside to answer a phone call, I unlocked the drawer for the first time in years. My hands trembled as I lifted the envelope. The seal was still intact, but when I opened it, one important page was missing. At that exact moment, Daniel walked back into the room, saw the empty envelope in my hands, and froze where he stood. Daniel stood completely still. His face lost every bit of color, and for several long seconds neither of us spoke. I looked from the empty envelope to my son's frightened eyes. My stomach tightened because I knew that expression. It wasn't surprise. It was fear. The missing page meant someone had opened the envelope before me, then carefully sealed it again. The only question left was why. I quietly asked Daniel if he knew anything about the missing document. He quickly shook his head and forced a nervous smile, insisting he had never touched his mother's desk. I wanted to believe him. Every father wants to believe his son, but something deep inside me kept whispering that Margaret had hidden that page for a reason. I folded the remaining papers and noticed a short handwritten note at the bottom. It read, "If one page is missing, do not search alone. Call Michael immediately." Michael was the attorney who had handled our family's legal matters for more than 20 years. Without saying another word, I picked up my phone and called him. The moment I mentioned Margaret's envelope, he became unusually serious. He asked me not to discuss its contents with anyone and promised he would be at my house within the hour. Daniel tried to convince me there was no need for a lawyer. He suggested the missing page was probably lost years ago during one of Margaret's hospital stays. His explanation sounded reasonable, but his trembling hands told a different story. While we waited, I carefully reread every page that remained inside the envelope. Margaret described how much she loved our family, yet she repeatedly warned me never to ignore small signs when something felt wrong. Every sentence seemed written for this exact day. Then my eyes stopped on one final line she had underlined twice. "The missing page contains the truth that protects everything we built together." A car pulled into my driveway. Michael stepped out carrying a locked leather briefcase. He walked inside, greeted me quietly, and looked straight at Daniel before saying a single word. Then he placed another sealed envelope on the table and softly said, "James, before we open this, there's something you need to know. Your wife left instructions in case that page ever disappeared." Michael rested his leather briefcase on the dining table and took a slow breath before unlocking it. The room felt unbearably quiet. Daniel stood near the window, pretending to look outside, but I could see his hands trembling. My own heart was racing. Margaret had trusted Michael for decades, and if he looked this serious, I knew whatever came next would change our family forever. From the briefcase, Michael removed a certified copy of the missing page. He explained that Margaret had anticipated the possibility that someone might remove the original, so she had legally deposited an identical copy with his office. She wanted the truth to survive, no matter what happened to the envelope. As I unfolded the page, I recognized Margaret's handwriting immediately. My eyes filled with tears before I had even read the first sentence. The document wasn't about money alone. Margaret explained that, during the last year of her illness, she had discovered Daniel secretly trying to persuade her to transfer ownership of our home and investment accounts into his name. She wrote that she believed fear and financial pressure had clouded his judgment, but she refused to sign anything. Instead, she created legal protections to ensure no one could take our home or savings while I was still alive. Reading those words felt like losing her all over again. I couldn't understand how the little boy I had raised had reached this point. Daniel finally broke his silence. Through tears, he admitted he had found the envelope months earlier and removed the page because he believed I would never forgive him if I read it. He insisted he had planned to put it back one day, but every week that passed made him more afraid. I wanted to be angry, yet all I felt was heartbreak. My son hadn't only hidden a piece of paper. He had hidden the truth from his own father. Before anyone could speak again, Michael reached into the briefcase one final time and removed another sealed packet marked with Margaret's signature. He looked directly at me and quietly said, "James, your wife left one final instruction. She told me not to open this unless Daniel finally admitted what he had done." Daniel slowly lowered his head as I reached for the last envelope with shaking hands. My hands trembled as I opened Margaret's final envelope. The room was so quiet I could hear the pages unfold. Her letter wasn't filled with anger or revenge. It was filled with love. She wrote that she prayed Daniel would someday tell the truth on his own because real repentance can never be forced. She explained that the missing page was never meant to destroy our son. It was meant to protect our family if fear ever became stronger than honesty. Then I reached the final paragraph. Margaret had written that if Daniel confessed before anyone suffered financial harm, she wanted me to choose mercy instead of bitterness. Reading those words through my tears reminded me exactly why I had fallen in love with her. Daniel could no longer hold back his emotions. He walked across the room, dropped to his knees, and admitted everything. His business had been collapsing under debt, and he convinced himself that gaining control of my property would solve his problems before I ever discovered the truth. Every lie led to another until he no longer recognized the man he had become. Looking into his eyes, I didn't see a criminal. I saw a frightened son who had buried himself beneath pride and poor decisions. That realization hurt more than any missing document ever could. Michael confirmed that because Margaret had prepared every legal safeguard years earlier, none of Daniel's actions had changed ownership of our home or savings. Everything remained fully protected. Daniel accepted responsibility, apologized without excuses, and agreed to rebuild trust through honest actions instead of empty promises. It took many months before our family dinners felt normal again, but slowly the walls between us began to disappear. Margaret's wisdom had protected not only our home, but also the chance for our family to heal before it was too late. Today, Margaret's letters rest in the same desk where she left them, but the drawer is no longer locked. Every time I read them, I'm reminded that truth may hide for a season, but it never stays buried forever. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment, because your words may encourage someone to choose honesty before one lie becomes a lifetime of regret. Share this story with someone who believes forgiveness is strongest when it walks beside truth. Thank you for spending this time with me on Behind Dad. Remember, the greatest legacy we leave behind is not money or property. It is the courage to protect our family with truth, love, and integrity.